Thank you very much for kind words.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting me and giving me privilege to talk to all of you. And I'm really eager to work with Visit AI. I really thanks to Director Visit AI as well as the HODs from Visit AI. And I'm really happy to say that I have a good connections by which I could really have the kind of a program which we are driving. I'm participant as a faculty part of it on the program of FDP. To be frank with you, the SAE is also taking similar efforts, and we are working for a faculty development program. One of the program in presence, which was happened in last February, precisely 1 year over. That was the first program which we conducted at COEP Pune, and this program was well supported all over India representation with almost 65 participants. And then we had two online programs on FDP for electric vehicles. In addition to that, many programs has happened on online programs, particularly on electric vehicle development. And that is how I would like to share the information to all of you, what industry is looking at it as a EV part of it, and I'll give you overview about the electric vehicles. Is it clearly audible from my side?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so please allow me to present my PPT.
Yes, sir. Now over to you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So let me try for sharing the PPT.
Yes, sir.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. I'm trying to cover three parts of this presentation. How it has started with, how it has grown up, and what is the future for it. So I'm going to cover up hybrid vehicle as well as the fuel cell vehicle into it. Probably we may run a short of time, but I will try to give you overview how this e-mobility is getting spread across the India and what was the scenario for the world level. So taking the things forward, you must be aware that almost every car manufacturer in 2020, I would say 2015 onwards, is keen to come forward with a e-mobility. And as you are aware, in Northern Belt, probably there are so many auto rickshaws are plying on with the e-mobility because the government started doing a lot of promotional activities. If you look way backward, probably 1960s, 1970s was the time when the only petrol engines were there. By 90s, we started with diesel, and by somewhere around 1996, 97, the emission norms were applied for all those automotive vehicles. And thereafter, the revolution is quite fast. The OEMs came into India with their own models and they started manufacturing also in India. And those days, if you look at those emission norms, probably the fossil fuel which is being consumed at very faster and high rate were also one of the concern. How long we will be able to available all those fossil fuels like petrol, gasoline, or even the diesel vehicles which are being operated in India. So there were multiple things which is coming up. Technology was made available at certain point of time, and those experiments which gone up for emission development, combustion development, were taken to the highest level of the requirement in the automotive segment. Similarly, if you look at the two-wheeler and three-wheeler market, India becomes the number one in producing two-wheelers and three-wheelers, and that is how many Indian companies started selling those products in abroad as well. Now, if you look forward, what are those national plans which has come up? So, National Electric Mobility Mission Plan 2020 came in the first as a FAME 1, and faster adaptation of manufacturing and electric vehicles was the objective which was taken up, in which there was a focus particularly towards the technology, then creation of demand is expected users to be created for that. Then pilot projects were started with, and charging infrastructure is the another area wherein a lot of work is yet to happen. So if you look at FAME, there were two policies came up, FAME 1 and FAME 2. And in FAME 1, certain allowances has been given to a manufacturer so that the charges of excise duty or today's scenario GST part of it was exempted in terms of the tax reduction facility, which can be passed on to directly customer. So customer also get benefited, OEMs also get benefited, and promotional policy for Maharashtra government or Indian government has taken up by various states as well, so that India with all those states, particularly northern belt, was picked up very fast, so they could really progress well. And if you look at the number of vehicles which they are applying, which is quite large number of vehicles are already deployed in this. In Niti Aayog's reports also says that mobility transformation, which requires a lot of requirement on the alternative fuels, alternative energy, or kind of electric vehicles. So there is a one concept of shared vehicles, second concept of electrical, and third concept is of the connected vehicles, which can really see the good potential of the market by 2030. And that is how the entire policy were framed, so that the growth can happen and the current level of the manufacturing of those gasoline vehicles or diesel vehicles can substantially come down. Even today's budget has indicated that the old vehicles policy for scrapping has been considered for, after the necessary approvals and things. Probably after 15 years, one can be really look forward for scrapping of those old vehicles. Yes, it is very much required as such. Why it is so is one reason is, yes, the latest level vehicles are much better as they have been taking care of the safety of the passengers, safety of the users. They also take care of the safety of pedestrians or the people those who are while traveling they make use of various motorcycles, bikes, or even auto rickshaws, which even with small accidents their safety has been taken as a primary concern part of it. So one is that. Second one is cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, where is lot of pollution level is being considered for, and cities like Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore. So where the pollution levels deployment comes in large way, that the emission which has been emitted by the buses, trucks, or as well as the vehicles which are old vehicles, which is really high polluting vehicles. So they were banned for certain reasons, and subsequently that usage has been limited. So it is entirely government is trying to see that the people should benefit out of it by clearing old vehicles. They should have the better and safer vehicles, faster vehicles, and they also can see the value for the new vehicles which are coming up. So there are good reasons for which the scrapping decisions are welcomed, and people will definitely look forward for those kind of vehicles. And also indirect benefit of emission reduction will happen, as you are well aware that these vehicles are non-polluting vehicles coming from the electric mobility, or maybe hybrid vehicles, or maybe hydrogen vehicles which may come up in future. So looking forward, there are certain global areas wherein European countries has taken up a stringent target. By 2030 they wanted to overcome more than 50% of EV vehicles in the market. They also look forward by 2040 they should eliminate complete usage of fossil fuel, and then focus for electric transformation. Electric transportation was primarily considered for. So companies like Volvo, Daimler, Volkswagen, and Mercedes, and everybody, they come into picture and they started producing those vehicles. Then International Energy Agency in Global Outlook report says electric cars stock will go to 70 million by 2025. That means huge number of electric vehicles will be produced by all these OEMs, and people will certainly make use of those electric vehicles. Now, if you look at the products, you have everything right from small two-wheelers to the end of the level, which is considered as a huge trucks which can fly on a electric part of it. We are going to see all those examples as well. And that is how World Bank is supporting the policies across the world is supportive for all those electric vehicle mobilization. Now, government in India is also really keen so that e-rickshaws, e-autos, taxis, buses can get converted. And for Mumbai or even Pune, Nagpur, major metro cities, they have already adopted the policy that city transport buses will get converted into the electric mobility. More than 500 buses has been ordered in even pandemic conditions and have been supplied to those cities like Mumbai, Pune, and they started using those electric buses. Of course, there will be some problems which we can look into that problems, but major thing is like uh, reduction in the fuel bill for the fossil fuels like gasoline, diesel, and second one is emission reduction is the major objectives which is to be handled in a large way. There is another area which talks about the swappable battery, and the recently regulation has come up by which it says the car manufacturer can sell their car without selling the battery. So cost of the battery will be eliminated from the car prices. Similarly, when you go to the market, there are agencies which are available and which will help you to do the swappable batteries, like go to service station, change your battery and go for the renting purpose as the normal charges for electrification is being charged for. They may charge you a little higher side, but basic investment of something like 1.5 lakhs to something 2 lakhs will not be required in the initial stage, so that the cars will be cheaper and more promotion can happen on that perspective also. The private vehicles to the larger ecosystems are helping you, and that is how entire scenario is positive on electric vehicle programs. So if you look at various parameters, the Paris climate change is one of the reason, ambient air quality concerns, which we talked about and we have seen in pandemic conditions, there were clarity on the ambient clear air quality. People can have the larger visibility. Also, they see from the northern belt, they can see Himalaya range, or also the birds and the animals which are coming on the road because of the silenceness, or even the pure air which was absorbed by everybody. So these kinds of benefits are very much find out in the entire scenario. Import bill of oil is the another which is a burden to the India, and that's how people are more keen to reduce the import bill. Similarly, thrust on solar power and generation and the storage of solar power is another area where the work is parallelly happening. Sir, is it okay with the pace and the volume?
Yes, sir. It's fine. Participants are.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay. So we'll continue with this. I think that's a better thing to check in between. So what are the drivers for electric and hybrid vehicles? The stringent emission norms which we have already seen. Fuel economy we have already seen. Likewise, whenever the fuel prices goes up, we always talk about, oh, this is the very low mileage which we are getting, and then people always talk about the price of the fuel by which they really are concerned about it. Then high specific power. When you are looking forward for the high speed vehicles, high torque vehicles, then there is a concern about people to go for a development of new vehicles which are of high speed nature. And that's how, if you look at the first version of Maruti, which was producing about 35 uh, kilowatt, or sorry, 35 HP, which has now gone to something like 140 kilowatt kind of vehicles which are being flying on the road just for the sake of the SUVs and the cars which are available there. So one is the specific power demand has been increased, torque has been increased. We want the speeds. The earlier vehicle used to drive only at the 50 kmph speed. Now it is going at least at 130, 120 kmph speeds, and people demand more and more faster vehicles. Low fuel consumption is another part. Yes, the average per vehicle, which is, if you look at the current trends, yes, it is also improving trends. Like earlier vehicles used to give a mileage of 10, 11, 12. Nowadays, if you talk about all those bigger sizes SUVs, they are trying to give you mileage of something like 15, 16, 18, and diesel vehicles are going above 20. So why it is happening? Because the overall efficiency of the process has been improved drastically. There was a lot of technical inputs has gone in, new parts has been developed, the combustion process has been improved, and with all those, the quality of vehicle was one of the key feature for which, yes, at the one time, customer is demanding for it. Second side, OEM has to have investments on that side. The development cost, which has to be bared in the cost of the vehicle, is also being very high on all such matters. But this improved NVH, betterment of the comfort, betterment of the durability, or power to weight ratio, all these factors is one side of driver. So OEM, whenever any OEMs like Mahindras, Tatas, or even Marutis who are doing their development, they have to face these challenges. While the emission, noise, cost, and durability is the second part of it. And in all the circumstances, these four factors of challenges or maybe various drivers may change, but that kind of a requirement will not go away from the requirement. So that is how the new trends on the hybrid and electric vehicles which came up, and that too basically on the CO2 reduction, wherein the high courts, supreme courts also started intervening that this kind of a pollution level has to be meticulously met, and people need to work on the development of those stringent norms which have been enforced. You must be aware that today's BS6 norms have been deployed from April 2020, and all those manufacturers who has to meet that. Similarly, there are certain norms on other sides like safety aspects of it, or maybe the future life part of it. So end of the life part of it. So there can be certain norms which are deployed and which requires a lot of time and energy to develop such vehicles which can meet your current requirements. In electric vehicle scenario, I looked at it as a one part. These are the standards which have been enforced as a part of the CMVR requirement, and any manufacturer in India who has to follow with certain requirements, they these are the areas where they have to work. Like AS 38 talks about the construction and functional part of it. AS 39 talks about the measurement of electric energy consumption, how that electrical energy consumption is to be met. Then AS 40, the method of measuring the range. Range means per charge, how much kilometer it can clock. Similarly, 41 standards talks about the power from the motors or batteries. 49 talks about the CMVR approval for EV vehicles. That is a practice which has to be followed. And 48 talks about the batteries. These reference standards I have already given for a purpose of reference, by which if you look at those European standards, they are comparable over here. And even though vehicles are required to meet in European requirements, or if you are trying to sell those vehicles from Europe, or you are trying to bring the vehicles from Europe, you will see that these reference standards will be followed by those respective OEMs. There is a additional requirements like Indian standards AIS 102, that is for the hybrid electric vehicles, and AIS 102 part 2 is also meant for the hybrid electric vehicles. There are certain categories for which better understanding of your level. M and N categories have been classified as a passenger and goods carrier vehicles, and less than 3.5 ton is the range by which 101 part 1 is applicable, whereas for the heavy vehicles above 3.5 ton, 102 part is applicable. So these standards are always available on ARI website. If you are interested and wanted to know about the entire practices to be followed, probably you can download from ARI website. It is free for all people to understand and transfer the knowledge to each others. Then there is a specific requirement because of the Indian business scenarios that is called as a retrofitment. You are well aware that in India, typical mentality that even after 15 years, nobody wanted to scrap those vehicles. They wanted to reuse it. So there is an environmental tax which they have to pay to RTO. Probably you can use it, or you may like to convert your vehicle from gasoline to EVs, and probably this type of EV conversion is also allowed, authenticated, and approved by the sources like ARI. So AS 123 part 1 is applicable for M and N category less than 3.5. 123 part 2 is for above 3.52, and 123 part 3 is basically for the pollution kit kit manufacturers so that you can supply the kits to the suppliers. So that way, the retrofitment kit which can be approved is also being considered. So you may be a manufacturer or converter of the product, but you can get some parts which have been approved by the respective supplier, and you can buy those components and integrate towards yourself and do the model approval so that you can be a authorized converter of the vehicles or authorized garage which can be doing this type of conversion activity. And that's how this retrofitment business is also a huge business in India, which is not having similar understanding in the Europe or USA. That's how there is no reference standards available for this. So we have made our own standards, and that is helping for the Indian requirements. Now, when you see the electric vehicle, there has a combination of multiple things. Now, when you say it is a purely electric vehicle, then there is no IC engine or SI engine. You have to take it out, and in place of that, you can put a motor, you can put a battery charger, and the storage device for the electrical energy. That's how it is configured. I'm not going to describe the figure. You can very well understand the figure, but battery, charger, fuel storage areas, you have to define, and you have to fix them in such a way that they are safe to operate and they are helping the entire purpose of the vehicle to drive as a functional requirements. Similarly, if it is a hybrid vehicles, the both the combinations will be there, including the fuel tank, then powertrain in the front, and the other areas like you have the transmission, you have the connections with the front wheel axle. So all those things will be definitely there in case of the hybrid vehicles are there. We will see the hybrid pictures as well. But if you look at this entire picture, you can come to know which are the parts which are involved in such type of activities. Today's scenario, the passenger vehicles, more than 3.6 million vehicles are plying on the road. 21 million two-wheelers are plying on the road. Three-wheelers are more than 0.7, or which can be also close to 1 million vehicles. And commercial vehicles are 0.8 level, 0.8 million vehicles which are available on the road. And there is a dire need of converting them into Indian requirement with the latest norms and the trends which have been followed. So you can see the charger which is ready to connect with the electric vehicles, and electric vehicle is properly configured here in the picture which you are looking at it. If I show you different products, you can assume that these products are already plying in India. They are available except this Scania truck which we have taken a picture from Europe. But I would like to express it very well because in our imagination, this type of railway transportation system where the electricity taken from the top is likely to come up in the corridor between Mumbai to Delhi. And those trucks will be having electric motor which can take the power from the top. When they are driving in the corridor path, they will use this electricity which is readily available on the grid. And whenever there is no electricity grid available, or wherever they are not in the corridor areas, probably they can use their battery power which is available inside, which is fixed as a EV requirements. But this type of trucking arrangement is likely to come up in India in next 5 years time. Please mention, I would like to mention here only to see that what is the potential business which we are looking at it and can be developed. So two types of three-wheelers, one bikes. There are many startups in the India who are trying to produce these bikes. There are two categories of the bikes, which is less than 25 kmph speed, as well as there is a above 25 kmph speed, but higher size of motor, high size of battery, they may have to use it. And that's how this electrification is becoming more and more stronger in Indian requirements. Now, if you typically looked at the overall packaging or the component level which goes into the EVs, I would like to describe that right from the corner at right corner of the battery pack, which you can see that series of batteries has placed together. Then VPIM is a connector between the battery and the inverter program. Then HV DC-DC program is basically an inverter which help you to convert a DC-DC supply. Then displays for the vehicle level have been shown. What is the speed, what is the acceleration which you can demand, and which is the gear position which you can see for. Then there is a shifter by which you can have the automated shifter kind of a vehicles, or maybe a normal shifting arrangement which normally goes into the manual shifting mode. Then there are pedals which has to have the acceleration mode and this accelerator sensors helps to control your motor, which are a very typical and special requirement in the program. Then motors and the inverters which are connected with, from which the battery to motor supply has been taken. Inverter takes the supply and gives the regulated supply to the motor. And these motors are directly connected with the BMS, which are connected with. There are gearboxes which are coupled with the axle, and there will be some heaters as like the AC systems are required, air conditioners are required, then programmable units which is helping you as a fuse box will be deployed there. Then cooling pumps which are there for the controlling the temperature of battery circuitry part of it, or maybe motor. Even sometimes you have to control your motors as well for the external temperature which may happen due to the heat part of it. Then relay modules are there which controls the supply line. Then BMS is helping you for controlling the entire battery charging system device, as well as discharging the battery from battery to motor level. And HV chargers are trying to help you to take the external supply of the electricity and convert to the battery as a pack for the charging level. So that is how the configuration of electric vehicles is being shown here. This is schematic diagram of electric vehicles. Battery is placed in between, inverter is there. Inverter is always controlled through the controller, which is giving you supply line from battery as well as to electric motor. And electric motor coupled with the gearbox coupled with the differential or axle level, and then that drives the vehicle in totality. So similar way, if you look at the various energy kind of a situation, so specific energy given by gasoline is quite high, substantial. Similar way, there is a hydrogen which can produce maximum energy, but are we going to use it directly? Definitely answer is no. So we can use a hydrogen, but we have to have the hydrogen program, which we have to deal separately, because the hydrogen has its own limitations and the betterment of entire fuel cell as a part of it. Then lead acid batteries, if you compare with, which has a very low specific energy, nickel metal hydride batteries, which is giving you something like 50 watt per hour. Lithium ion batteries, which are more commonly used, lithium ion or lithium polymer batteries, which is between the range of 120 to 200. And sodium sulfur is another type of battery which is likely to come up in the range of 150 to 300 watt hour per kg. So if you look at the ultra capacitors are used mostly in the aerospace industries. Likewise, we have the devices for the energy storage, and based on that, what is the best suitable for our application is required to be decided. And generally today's in scenario, lithium ion batteries are well aware, but lithium itself is not available in ample quantity in India. Recently, we had one lithium ore which has been identified in Rajasthan, and Karnataka started producing lithium from one of the location in Karnataka, which is yet to little more commercial level. It is yet to come up in that site. So looking forward, today's scenario, all lithium ion is being mainly imported from China, and this China dependency is really a question mark for all of us. So EVs are into stakes, but we are lucky enough to say that at least 2 locations in India could really have something to deal with, and we can have the lithium-ion batteries in future to be produced in India. As on date, most of the people are trying to get the cell from either in Korea or in China, and they try to assemble it here, which has a special demand on the technology part of it, because the entire battery itself is the volatile part which has a lot of understanding about the battery requirements. Then if I start talking about the conceptualization of the EVs, there are 2 systems which goes parallelly, either AC system or DC system, and from 250 watt to something like 600 kilowatt is kind of application level which we have seen. 250.5 kilowatt or 1 kilowatt are the use mostly on the 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, and from 5 kilowatt onwards, the various applications for the small three-wheelers with goods carrier or something like on the betterment side of the cars. They use it something higher capacities, and 600 kilowatt is the dealing requirement basically on the buses or trucks which ply on the roads. The range is also different for each battery or each vehicle, depend on its weight, depend on the battery size, capacity, and type of battery which you are using. So something like bicycle, you can use it for 10 kilometers. Probably after that only you may need charging, or something like the cars which are going up to 300 kilometers, like Tata Motor Tigor is one of the classical example, which could meet about 300 kilometers per charge. That means between Pune Mumbai, probably you can have one trip in one charge, and then you may need the charging again. This major components list or utility list which we have, which I'm not going to read it out, but it is very well understood that multiple programs, multiple projects can be taken up for these requirements of the market domain, including aircrafts also flying on the battery fuel is also being considered. Now, typically, these electric motors are having the instant torque, and this instant torque within something like 1500 RPM of the battery motor, you can have the instant, constant, gradual rise in torque, which you can see the faster acceleration, and then probably it works at the steady speed, which is driven at the constant speed, and the motor produces the that much of the power at successive rate. And that's how this motor characterization is very important to integrate in the vehicle level. So motor is typically of certain natures. We can see what type of motors are being used. So there is a permanent magnet type PM motor with AC system used in most of the EVs, and these are considered as a high efficiency, high torque, and short but constant, and power range is also smaller one. Then induction motor, three-phase AC motors being used at Tesla, Toyota, RAV4 kind of a vehicles, and these have been largely wide applications has been seen for induction motors, simple and robust, wide speed. Then you can have the range something like 300 plus. Then less efficient, these are the considered as a less efficient than permanent magnet, but they have been widely used. And switch reluctance motors, DC motors, are coming up in a new scenario, and they're also being considered for small three-wheeler applications or the hub motors which have been produced in the new technologies. They are trying to be used in this requirements as a longer term. So extremely high efficient, speedy motors, and little bit costly. So having the known understanding about the motors which is suitable for our product is to be looked at it. Then BMS pack, how does it look like? The fuel cell is basically, battery cell is something like a package deal, which you have seen the size-wise series of battery cells, which have been aligned in the series and then connected in the parallel, and they are packed in a well thermal seal conditions. Also, there is a lot of water cooling provisions has been provided or air cooling provisions has been provided so that cooling can be effectively managed. And the BMS makes a major deal about the battery part of it. So each and every cell which has the potential energy which is being tapped in connection with the requirement of the charging as well as discharging when the motors are being driven through the battery level. So these environmental conditions at ambient temperature or maybe at the when it is run to the highest level, that is a maximum extraction of the energy done. That time whatever the heat dissipation happens, we have to have the control over there, and that is how thermal management control is the most critical exercise which BMS has to do. Similarly, when you are trying to charge the battery, then each individual temperature level is being monitored. If it is getting exceeded, then it is required to be tripped off. Otherwise, it will go into heat generation and it will spoil the next level of the cell. Probably entire battery can go damaged just because of the excessive current and temperature which happens inside the battery level. So this BMS plays the major role in the entire systems. Then there are charging methodology which has to be followed with, which is a schematic diagram which I'm trying to showcase you here. But more important is the how is that charge and the performance of the battery. So if you charge for the full range, probably you can get maximum battery for its utilization, and battery performance and the entire efficiency of the battery can be worked out for the charging and discharging cycle. That is called as a SOC of the battery. And this SOC experiment, SOC is expressed in terms of the function of V, I, T, Z, and R, whereas the V is the battery open circuit voltage, I is the current, T is the temperature, Z is the battery impedance, and R is the battery voltage relaxation time after the appreciation of the step current. That means how temperature wise the effect will happen. You can see if the temperature goes up, battery performance comes down, and reverse way, as the highest efficiency you can see at the lowest temperature, operating temperature range in Fahrenheit, which has been given. So we have to convert it into degree centigrade, and based on that you can see the best usage. But if I tell you the example of something like the bus charging system or car charging systems, which are difficulty in the summer zone, like in Nagpur or like in Pune, when the temperature goes above 45, the temperature, because of the temperature, charging is done only to the level of 30-40%, and it cannot go to the full charge system. So you have to wait till that temperature comes down, or you have to make the ambience which is suitable for that kind of operating temperature, something between 30 degrees, and then you have to have the cooling system made available for all those charging areas so that the battery charging can effectively done. That's how the service station concept, which has come up in future, that was one of the reasons for it. Otherwise you may have to have the charge of 8 hours and battery still charge only to the 50% of it. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes. Are you wanting me to stop?
I think, sir, he's talking another place. Please continue.
If possible, you can mute them.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So that is how we see that key performance of the batteries plays a vital role. And in such cases, the batteries or buses which are not completely charged, they may stop after 50% of its duty cycle. And that's how the efficiency of these vehicles are purely dependent on the charging and discharging rate at which it works. Now, if you look at the safety of this, these are the common examples which I would like to quote it. Right side corner is very familiar with the Mumbai people. They see a lot of roads are flooded with, and most of the time the water is clogging above something like 1 feet or more than that. So all such cases, because of the high voltage systems which are deployed on your cars or three-wheelers or even bicycles or two-wheelers, what it will go wrong, that we must understand and study for. Similarly, the EMC is termed as a electric magnetic competency, and this compatibility is always helping you, because you are using so many gadgets which are emitting constantly, like your mobile is one of the emitting device. So if it is electric emission, or it is a magnetic emission, that all is trying to disturb your operating cycles, just because of the ECUs, TCUs which have been used in your vehicles. They may have the inferiority part of it if this magnetic circuits which interface with your operation part of it. Similarly, crash test happens. In the crash test, probably if your vehicle is electric car and that met with an accident, and if something goes wrong, what are the impacts which we have to face with? We have to study completely whether the discharge of the current has not converted into the earthing part of it to the body, vehicle body, and the passengers inside has to be a safe, or whosoever goes for safeguarding those accidental people, probably they may have to face serious consequences in all such areas. So shock protection, there's the low energy standing, then rupture of the resistance and toxic gases which can emit from, then releases of installations and integrity protection. So all such matters are very, very vital over there. And these mitigations, these thermal explosions, which one has to be factorized for safety of electric vehicle, and for which the organizations or authorities like ARI has to completely evaluate the systems for their proper system requirements and ensure that these vehicles are safe in all such conditions, which will not have the deteriorating effect. Now, limitations with lithium ion. So today, what is the best suitable raw material is lithium ion, and this lithium ion availability is a question mark which we talked about. Then battery of good quality and its price is another concern for all of us. Then range is another area, whether it is 100 kilometers or 300 kilometers, or we want it 500 kilometers. So that is one limitations for us. Then frequent charging and cycle time. How many times we have to charge? Even if you are starting from your home and within the travel of 50 kilometers, you need a charger purpose at your office, whether the office has a provision of charging system is one question mark. Probably, yes, after coming back to home and at the end of the day, if you put your vehicle on the charging, probably it's good scenario. So you have covered more than 150, 100 and 200 kilometers, and then you are putting it for charging. Is not a question mark for you. But typically, if you look at the point-to-point transportation people, they need after 4 hours of duty cycle, probably they may have to halt in between and go for a charging. That kind of a thing is more critical over here. Sometimes it happens that 1 hour charge is good enough. Sometimes it happens so that you may have a charge of 8 hours is where minimum requirement. That is all scenarios need to be considered here. Secondly, disposal of battery is the most critical part. Today, the lead acid batteries disposal system has been already established since the batteries are there in the market. So people take away the acid, people take away the lead, people take away the casing, and they do disposal of each and every atom independently. Similar way, lithium ion technology is yet not established in the market. So how to dispose of lithium ion? It is treated as a toxic material also. So disposal of lithium ion is still challenging part to all of us, and how to dispose it of is one of the areas where people from MPCB side who are authorities about it, they need to work out, and the proper disposal system has to get evolved into the requirements. Although we are trying to throw away our batteries from mobile sets, we dispose it off without even considerations. Although it is a very small battery, but still during the charging of mobile, many cases of explosions has happened, and we have seen those cases who have suffered under the considerations. Like if we keep on throwing out those batteries which are not usable for us, probably from the car and two-wheelers, yes, we will have the tough time for such dealing of the disposal. And that's how the regulatory part, the disposal systems, authenticated people, and there has to be a proper method which has to be evolved for the battery disposal. Now, looking at these components, I'm trying to give you some schematic pictures or photographs by which you can see. I'm not going to talk in this particular areas, but this is better for the understanding purpose. And charging stations is one area probably I would like to touch upon. आणि पाणी पण घेऊन ये मला प्लीज पाणी पण घेऊन ये.
आपण ते 2 PC वाचवले ना त्याचा फायदा
आहे. So I would switch over from here to hybridization program. Probably with this inputs on the electric side is good enough at this point of time. And once you are connected directly with the vehicle, probably you can see all those and experiment on the EVs which are presently available. Now, if I talk about the hybrid vehicles, the hybridization programs which come up started with about 5 or 6 years back when the micro hybrid was introduced. And micro hybrid is one of the category mainly deployed on starting system, and many vehicles have been made similar to the micro hybrid requirements. So they have the fuel saving whenever your vehicles are standing for a signal for about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, they try to save your energy by not having the combustions on the road when the vehicles are stopped for the signal. And then starting system which is loaded, battery systems which is loaded, is considered as a micro hybrid. Similarly, mild hybrids has been taken care. So regenerative braking is one of the areas by which you can have the charging through the regenerative braking, and batteries, same 12-volt batteries can be charged from the regenerative braking. Use of battery energy to assist in the engine and enable downsizing of the engine. This is one of the added feature with the new latest vehicles which have been considered. Like you are well aware that the combustion development systems, when it is being produced, you need to go for the higher size capacities of the vehicle with 1.5 liter, 2 liter, 3 liter engines were considered for that matter. And all that downsizing has taken place, and now most of the vehicles, most of the vehicles which are flying on the road are basically something like within 1 liter engine or 0.8 liter engine to something like 1.5 liter engine. Whether it's gasoline or petrol, it is hardly make a difference for it. But those vehicles has a effect of downsizing just because of the hybrid electric has been considered into it. Now, when we talked about mild hybrid to full hybrid is basically a complete vehicle which has a combustion engine, which has a battery also, motor also, and which can share the load of these two from the two energy sources which have been available there. Driving without combustion engine in while engine is in running, and that is one area for full hybrid vehicles which has been considered. Like when you are driving in the city, you drive it with the battery. When you are driving on the highways, you can drive it on the combustion engine, and that's how it is helping you for driving the vehicles at two different energy sources, and that is how it is considered as a effectiveness for the hybrid vehicles. Then PHEV plug-in hybrid vehicles, they are, when you come back for a recharging, then plug and play is the kind of a scenario by which recharging is helping you to restore the energy in your batteries, and you can just start playing the vehicles as and when you require it after the full charge is available. These are the schematics of the hybrid vehicles. I really need not to describe this because it's very clear and legible for you, but you can see the same codification has been done for electric motor. The batteries in different colors, then fuel colors is being shown with different oils, and the hydrogen is shown in the red color. That is how 4 different categories of electric vehicles has been considered over here, and these type of vehicles are very easily available in advanced countries like Europe and USA. Now, when we considered the case study of hybridizations, the hybrid vehicles architecture is one of the most crucial part of it. The best possible CO2 reduction and lowest fuel consumption is one of the areas, are the key parameters which we have already seen. Then downsizing is another areas. The diesel engine was downsized to the optimum level, and electric motor vehicle which has been used for this purpose is also being optimized at certain level so that you can have the combination of these two. Then retrofitment possibility also need to be worked out. Maximum weight for increase in electrical components because of the current scenario, whatever the diesel engine or petrol engine you are trying to retain in the system, which has to go along with the electric drive parts which have been already seen into. So likewise, if you are going to add something like 200 kg weight, then your car or the bus, truck, or the goods carrier vehicle, which need to be capable of driving such increased load because of adding the electric parts. Then efficient controls for electric drive technology for the transient operations, and how the transformation from electric to the gasoline vehicle or gasoline to electric vehicle, and how smoothly it gets transformed from one end to another end is most critical part of it. The NVH features we have already seen, and cost is definitely going to increase because of the electric parts have been added too. So looking at the entire cost pattern of the vehicle, probably it's a major decision by which we have to work for the hybridization very, very carefully. Now, I have given you the schematic diagrams of it. The load is the final end where you have connected with your wheels, and the energy, 2 different energy sources tries to supply. and how it is integrated and the flow is being taken care is also shown. This is a basic concept of the hybrid vehicle. Now, if you look at this actual concept, the schematic from engine, you have connected with the transmission which is connected with the uh, speed coupling unit, and that speed coupling unit is coupled with the end of the vehicle, which is considered as a differential part of it. So either one side from battery and controller supply goes to the speed coupling unit, and electric transmission or the motor which supports you for going forward for that kind of a drive establishment for the hybrid vehicles. Similar way, this is the transaxle motor which showcase you the configuration of the internal construction and which helps you for the better understanding purpose only. So input and output shaft in the clutching system has been shown, so that smooth synchronization should take place between electric motor versus the gasoline drive which is available over there. Now this is alternate torque and the speed hybrid electric drivetrain, which is having the planetary gearbox, and planetary gearbox is showing you all the connections by which the one side is engine driving, second side is your motor driving, and that is coupled with the differential so that axle can drive. But these connections and the entire packaging part of it, which is a critical part of it for the design of the transmission. Now, if you look at this same in the schematic diagram has been shown here. Finally, electric motor drives, and that is called as a series hybrid vehicle. So such type of vehicles are already available in the market. IC engine independently drive, battery is driving from other side, and finally transmission is driving your vehicle. So I'm going to showcase you series, parallel, and combination. Now this is how the hub motor configuration. Motors are directly coupled with the wheels, and the same way one side is engine, one side is your battery, which is trying to feed the power to the wheel end through the motors. And that is how the configuration of hub motor can be seen in the series connections. Similar way, the parallel connections, both the systems are independently working. Mechanical couplers are connected to the transmissions, and transmission connected with the rear axle or the front axle, wherever it is configured with. These are just for the better understanding part of it. Then PHEV configurations, in which you have the plug-in hybrid vehicles, and the battery requires the charger through inverter and the motor which has been connected with, and finally coupled with the mechanical transmission to the wheel ends. This is architecture of the series parallel hybrid vehicles. You can see the complexity has been increased, and you have two alternative systems made available. The first part is with the fuel, IC engine, and mechanical coupler, which directly gives the power to the transmission, or in between there is a generator by which it produces the electricity which help for the charging of the battery, and other way around it is supplying the battery supply to electric motor to the transmissions directly. And in other case is the power converter has been added to, by which either electric battery can directly go to the motor generator, or the independently electric motor can drive, or mechanical coupler can drive the transmissions in the series parallel conditions. So these two configurations are very much available, and those vehicles from Tesla, Toyota, or Honda, all those people are trying to use series and parallel combinations. But you can see that design complexities are quite high in such cases. Series and parallel hybrid operated as the series or parallel. Engine linked with the final drive, and power to the wheels are directly given. So this works in line with HEVs, and second electric motor is working as a generator. Since the series and parallel hybrid vehicles are operated in both versions, it gives the advantages of high fuel efficiency along with the excellent drivability. So for drivability development, you need to work in a good amount of work has to be done to develop the proper drivability, speed synchronization, and expected response from the throttle versus the motor. And this is how the complexity of the job is increased. In totality, it is considered as a definitely complex job to handle with. Similarly, this is a configuration of hybridization. In complex hybrid is another system which has been considered over here, and in which it is similar to series parallel hybrid, and finally driving with the vehicles at the wheel end. The complex hybrid system is multiple motors are used and drive for the planetary gears are involved with. Generally, it is with four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive of vehicles which have been available in recent market trends, and separate drive axles are used for all such purpose. The generator is used to perform the series of operations as well as controls of engine. Two electric motors are used to get all-wheel drive performance, and the same time it supports for the regenerative braking. This is also helping you for enhancing the vehicle stability and anti-lock braking. So these are the advantageous situations which one can drive from, and this anti-lock braking or vehicle stability, for which vehicle development people will come to know about it, how much time and the energy which they have to spend upon. So looking at this hybrid powertrain development, which is a basic program and which needs a lot of time to be dedicated for such, this hardware in loop, then what is to be baseline performance preparation, all those things has tremendous work to be done. Probably at each of the stage of vehicle validation in validation prototypes or in the production prototypes, they have to be established properly till the satisfaction of your customer, and then only optimized solutions can be offered in the market. So this is the major chunk of the area which industry spends normally between 6 months to 1 year's time down the line, and without that kind of involvement of those engineers for developing those specific powertrains is one area where industry spends a lot of energy as well as the time resources to experiment and come to an acceptable version of the powertrain which can go in the market. So I would just like to emphasize that this is the one of the challenges which industry people need to meet, and probably there is a lot of good scope for professors to work upon even to develop such vehicles, and they can be part of the programs wherever such opportunities are available for. This is the simulation techniques. Cruising algorithms are available. The software-based technologies are available by which one can be just have the exposure about it, and this exposure is trying to just give you overview how that kind of a development can take place. And the again, as I said, the 6 to 8 months down the line, you may have to spend the time to develop such perfect vehicles in the market which can be widely acceptable for the customer's needs. Now these are the graphical representations for which each and every parameter you may have to work upon, and based on the specific target level, probably you have to mitigate that, and then only it is possible to be acceptable product in the market. Similar way, the reduction of the combustion development, since the vehicles is under the IC engine as well as the electric motor. So what are the baseline prepared for that? And again, acceleration, hybrid acceleration is being looked at it very carefully when they are required to be handled with. So these areas, engineers from industry, they spend good amount of time, and also at ARI level, the team works on all such matters to develop such kind of a technologies over there. Probably it's one of the challenges, the areas wise and the specific technical domain knowledge is required for all these matters to deal with. These are the DC-DC converters, or DC-AC converters, which are required to be in place of the circuitry part. And these two systems are, I would just give you overview, not for the purpose of giving much details, but DTC and FOC are the two techniques which are commonly used for developing the control systems and evaluating it for its application purpose and the required specific performance of the rated requirements. So hybrid is going to come up in the market in a large numbers, and those vehicles are already in the domain. Like I can name a couple of vehicles, like Toyota Camry is one of them, or maybe Honda Civic is there. There are certain Indian people are also trying to develop such vehicles on those where the hybrid vehicles programs are being taken up by Indian OEMs as well, and they may come up in due course of time. But already this type of technology, which is a bit expensive, something ranging from 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs, and people are having those vehicles in the market, and those vehicles are really a future part of it as a part of the Indian requirement, because only battery is not working, only fuel is not working, so combination of these two probably is going to help us. But today's scenario, that government support and the policies which are yet to frame about hybrid vehicles is yet to come up. Probably we may have to wait for another 2 3 years. But in Europe and USA, these type of vehicles are very popular, and that's how the hybrid is the next program which we may have to work upon. And the technology wise, these developments will be very keen to learn and very keen to uh, even delete giving it to the next generation for the entire requirements, so that people in that line can absorb the technological needs and they can be prepared for the those understanding. And I can see many of the students in future, they will be coming up in that area to work forward for development of transmission, development of the simulations, and working on those powertrain optimization level. So last part of this discussion, sir, am I right at the speed, or I need to quickly sum up now?
No, sir, you can take.
Okay, so now 3:25, probably I can close it by 4 o'clock.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so that is last part which I'm going to cover is a fuel cell, and this technology is already there in the domain, but we need to work upon on a specific development. And today's scenario, these developments in advanced countries is going on well, with certain level of understandings about that technology which is available there. If I show you a picture of hydrogen vehicles is already flying in the US roads, yes, it is right. In California or the New York areas, probably you can such type of vehicles which have been flying on the road. But even in America, it is not very popular. It is only on the experimentation basis, and few European countries have started working on that side. So development of hydrogen fuel is one of the future part which has been taken into consideration. Hydrogen is obtained by reforming the various gaseous fuels like produces gas, then biogas from organic waste or the other biomass, or natural gases, or liquefied petroleum gas, and liquid fuels like methanol or ethanol. By conversion, you can extract the hydrogen, which can be usable as a part of the electricity producing part, and finally it charge your battery for the purpose of the driving the motors. So all three are connected with, including hybrid vehicles or hydrogen vehicles or even fuel cell vehicles, and how to store hydrogen as a fuel, how to keep the fuel cells in the vehicle, because it is very heavyweight, it has certain understanding, limitations and plus points, which we need to see into detail part of it. Now, sources of hydrogen and storage mechanisms. Economical reformation of the technology for hydrogen production is still today, whatever the industry type of hydrogen is made available, which is directly usable for this type of automotives, which is required to be stored in proper ways, so that the pressurized tanks for required gaseous hydrogens is one of the challenge for us today. As you are aware that hydrogen gas itself is highly explosive, and handling of hydrogen gas in the sense of the highly explosive matter, we have to be very, very cautious and very specifically taking care of the entire safety aspect of the requirement. Advanced carbon material absorption is another inherent feature by which carbon nanotubes or alkaline droplets, carbon nanotubes or graphite nanotubes are required to store for that matter. Or if it is a metal storage case, probably it starts eating up the carbon particles inside the metal which has been used as a MS plates or the steel plates which have been used for the storage containers. The higher technology implementation or operating costs due to the lower volumes. Today's uh, technology-wise implementation is definitely a bit expensive. The operating cost is definitely lower due to the low volumes, and in such cases, we may have to have more and more towards the part of the future development. How does it look like? I'm trying to showcase you the vehicle which has got a complete hydrogen storage, then how it is dispensed from the hydrogen fuel station, and how it is connected with the entire circuitry part. So you can see red color linings which have been considered as electric wires which drive the high voltage system, which we are not touched the subject, but I would like to definitely touch upon that part of it. Similarly, the hydrogen line which has to be dealt with, which is high explosive, we have to have safety features in mind, and then battery itself being the charging, discharging, SOC part, we have to maintain its temperature and all those things which we have to take into consideration over here. So looking at the fuel cell, yes, alkaline fuel cells are the one of the type. Phosphoric acid fuel cells is second type. Molten carbonate fuel cells is third type. Solid oxide fuel cells is the fourth type, and polymer electrolyte fuel cells is the fifth type, which operates at different operating temperatures. We can see the comparison of it. But these fuel cells are operating, and specific technologies are used over here for a development of the hydrogen gas out of the these fuel cell categories. So based on the type of electrolyte material, there are 5 categories. Based on the type of fuel and oxidants, there are 5 categories. And based on the operating temperature, there can be 2 or 3 categories. So you can see the table which gives you the entire understanding. So only the polymer electrolyte fuel cell, PEFC, is considered as a suitable for our automotive applications. And the other applications which can be converted for a DG states or maybe some solid states, whereas the localized stable productions which can be considered as a non-movable energy sources. And in some areas like solid oxide fuel cells, the operating temperature itself is a challenge to make it operational at 1000 degrees. Like you have to have the furnace before putting a power plant over there. Likewise, certain understandings and limitations we may have to understand about it. Solid oxide fuel cells, SOFC, is considered as a from the range extender in presence of the electricity. Although it is technological wise, it is little low end technology, but the operating temperature wise, it is quite high when it operates at. But this particular range extender applications have been considered, and surprisingly, one of the Nissan vehicle was produced with the solid oxide fuel vehicle, that too in Brazil market. But we don't have much of data about it, whether it is successful model or not. But some of the automotive manufacturers has make some experimentations, and they have used the technology over there. The proposed solution seems to be very encouraging and promising, mainly due to the presence of onboard fuel cell for charging of the battery, and hence user will not have anxiety of the range. That means it is continuously charging your battery, and you can keep on using it since you are carrying the plant on the car level. The SOFC are available relatively cheaper than the proton exchange membrane, and based on the fuel cell which are widely used in automotive applications. That is how SOFC trend is yet to come up, but it is seen as a useful device for us to go for the hybridization part of it. Then proton exchange membrane, PEM, is a fuel cell are widely used in automotive application. Larger fleet of city buses, they are already converted, and they are plying on the road as a hybrid electric vehicles. And in India is yet to come. The main reason you are aware that temperature zone is the critical parameter for us. The operation and implementation of the cost is 3 times higher than the conventional mobility solutions. As on date, probably in future, it may come down, the cost may come down. Then research can be extended to the work on the reduced cost and the maximum fuel economy. The extended work is really required for further cost reduction, and the maximum fuel economy can be extracted out of it. So this PEM technology is definitely useful. The vehicles currently which are available in fuel cell, they have been seen from that area and PEM area, and people are trying to use it in the USA or Germany in very particular category. Those are trying to use this PEM type of technology, and they are trying to see that it is useful as a part of the current level of the understanding. Of course, some limitations of the cost, operating cost, or the maximum fuel efficiency, how to get it, all those work is yet to happen on that. In both the cases, sizing of the systems like battery, inverter, supercapacitors, and the fuel cell, along with the optimal control strategy for driving cycle, is the biggest challenge which one has to work upon these areas. What is the capacity of the battery? What is the inverter size? Probably type of supercapacitor, and what is that current level of the supercapacitor which can help us? All those are the question marks which we have to deal with. Second important aspect is economical vehicle development. That itself is a big investment for the development of the programs. And today's scenario, all those developments in India is not visible because of our needs are different. Our investments in that type of technological need development is not yet happening. However, advanced countries like US, Sweden, or Germany, they can afford to spend money. So they are working on it, and a couple of universities are working. And that's how the hybrid development, hydrogen development or fuel development is also part of their program as on date. Now, typically, how does it look like? PEMC, PEMFC has been showcased here. Then you can see that anode and cathode plates are different. They are at the outset, and there are certain collector controllers, then gas movements inside and outside is being taken care. Gas diffusion layers are there, graphite plates have been placed inside, and then there are the gaskets which have been shown in the orange color. There are gas diffusion layers which have been of specific substance. Then there are the sub gaskets, and finally metal which reacts with the gases and allows the hydrogen to create is being taken care here. So this MEA is being considered as the most crucial part of it, and it is made out of the platinum, which is a very, very expensive level of the metal which has to go with. This is how solid polymer electrolyte is being showcased here. Then catalyst of hydrogen and oxygen is being deployed here, and the gas transfer from one end to another allows you to bifurcate the hydrogen and oxygen separately, and finally the electron charge which can produce the electricity and transfer from anode to cathode and cathode to finally to the circuitry part of it. That's how electrification flow can happen with, and that is how the layers have been showcased in the fuel cell structure part of it. So if I show you working principles, a fuel cell is a device that uses the hydrogen and oxygen to create electricity on an electrochemical process. A single fuel cell consists of the electrolyte sandwich material between the two thin electrodes. The porous anodes and the cathodes have been placed there. We have seen in the picture. Hydrogen or hydrogen-rich fuel, which is fed to the anode, wherein the platinum catalyst separate the hydrogen negatively charged electron ions from positively charged hydrogen ions. And that is how protons and electrons have been separated out. Then cathode inside the oxygen gas, that is O2, which is forced through the catalyst from one end to another, and which reacts with the stronger negative charge. The negative charge attracts the two hydrogen atoms and then through with the membrane and combined with the oxygen atom and two electrodes from external circuit from the water molecule which can get produced out of it. So electrons are getting free, and outcome is that is converting into H2O. Then electrons from the anode side from fuel cell cannot pass through the membrane to the positively charged cathode. They must travel around it via electrical circuit to reach the outside cell, and then movement of the electron is taken as electrical current, doing the useful work such as the rotating the motor. Then amount of the power produced by the fuel cell depends upon the several factors such as the fuel cell type, fuel cell size, temperature at which it operates, and also the pressure at which the gases are being supplied here. Still, the single fuel cell produces enough electricity energy for all the smallest applications. That means the fuel cell can produce only very small part of the electricity which cannot produce as a large electricity. Therefore, individual fuel cells are typically combined into a series of fuel cell stacks which have been combined together. That means it is always considered fuel cell as a large stack, which is being shown in the next picture. And typically fuel cell stacks may consist of hundreds of the fuel cells together. Like lithium-ion battery is also considered in the stack program. So small cells have been attached, they have been properly welded, they are connected with each other, either they are connected in series and then parallel. So likewise, the fuel cell configuration and packing of the battery happens the similar way here. The fuel cell stack has to happen over here. This is how chemistry actions which happens in this case. I'm not going to read out everything. Probably I can allow you to read it out. So chemical reactions has been showcased here, and net reaction is H2 is coming out and electrons are getting free, which can get transferred from one end to the anode to cathode, and finally it is connected with the load cell. This is how the picture of fuel cell which have been shown here, and it produces only 0.5 to 0.65. That's what I said. It cannot produce a huge energy out of it. So one cell, fuel cell, can produce only 0.5 or 0.6 voltage. So you have to have the stack of hundreds together, and then only this kind of a heavy stack which can produce the expected outcome of the voltage, which can be used only for the charging purpose of the battery. And that is how connected cells in series or parallel, series connections voltage gets added up, and parallel connections current gets added up. That is how combination of these two can be made useful for charging of the batteries and then supplying it for the electric motor drive vehicles. This is commonly used in the passenger cars. Yes, the fuel cells are coming up in the big numbers. The technology wise, yes, it is expensive, but still the experimentation on that side is going on. Public transportation bus is definitely found useful because the heavy weight is the penalty which can be absorbed very much in the buses level, and that is how public transportation system with the fuel cells is being considered as the best application. Locomotive is another area where it has been successfully drawn. Aerospace is not so good about it, but power generators is another classical example wherein people can make use of it. The forklifts or the portable applications like laptop charger, mobile charger, the small niche applications can be very much developed. And in entire scenario, this technology of fuel cell is definitely useful, but at what cost? What are the answer to it? This solid oxide fuel cells working at higher temperatures, as I told you, between 800 to 1000 degrees. So you have to have preheating systems. The fuel supply which is has to have undergo under the 800 to 1000 degree temperature, something like the furnace temperatures, and based on that only it can operate. But once it starts operating, it is continuous operations till you reduce the entire flow of the supply. Then this is definitely solid oxide fuel cells. Negative ion travel through the electrolyte and anode where there is any combined with the hydrogen to generate water and electrons. In this case, the more important is the platinum as a mediator, which is not required there. That is the most advantageous scenario which we can see out of it. The efficiency is around 60% and expected to use to generate the electricity and heat in the industry, potentially for providing the auxiliary power. That is not as a primary power, but auxiliary power it can fed with, and the heat energy which is also available for the preheating purpose can be also reused in the different formats over there. So probably solid oxide fuel cells have been deployed on the stationary generation sources, and in one of the cities like California, there are some plants which have been installed as experimental level. In Australia also there are some projects which have been taken up, and those developments are definitely available, but the cost and the efficiency part which we have to look into part of it. Then this is how it looks like solid oxide fuel cell. The cathode and the oxygen modules from air are split into oxygen ions and added into the 4 electrons. Oxygen ions are conducted through the electrolyte and combined with the hydrogen and anode. So releasing 4 electrons of the hydrogen, which can help as a outcome is a hydrogen, this water droplets comes out of the exhaust systems. This is how the reaction systems has been showcased here. This all work has been taken up from the one of the professors from USA. So this is not readily available in the market. Probably if you're working in these areas, you can make it out and try to learn out of this. Then highest efficiency is considered as a 60%. The high operating temperature allows connections to applications, create a high pressure systems, then tolerate relatively impure fuels, which do not require a purified fuel to be used for, like today we are using 83 octane or 87 octane gasoline, which is not the case. So coal and other gases also can be used from the industry side. And then high temperature operating removes the need of the precious metal, therefore reducing the cost of the operations. And there are no poisonous or carbon monoxide CO2 emit from that. Sulfur resistance, it is considered as a sulfur resistance, also allows SOFC to use gaseous made from the coal, and different fuels can be used for the purpose. Scientists are currently exploring the potential for developing lower temperature SOFC somewhere around less than 800-degree temperature, and that is likely possible in due course of the time. So we may get better solutions of the SOFC type of fuel cells. The only drawback is very high weight, requires time to reach the operating temperature, and the entire function is treated as a expensive because of the materials of the construction. So this is how about the solid oxide fuel cell. We will also talk about advantages and disadvantages of fuel cells. CO2 discharge with the methanol reformation, little more efficient than the alternatives, and technological is currently level at expensive part of it. Many designs issues are still in progress. So that refinement of the entire process has not been done. The hydrogen often creates using the dirty energy, that means coal or any other kind of gases which can be used. And more importantly, hydrogen storage and handling is the biggest challenge to deal with. So refilling stations, storage tanks, dispensing units, these again limitations are there. But on experimental level, at least if you have visited US, probably you can see all those things which are in place, and some universities are working on that. So at least one can be happy to see that technological developments are coming up in due course of time. Then advantages are no emissions, as the water is the only discharge. Natural resource of the fuel can be prevented. They produces zero or no emissions, and especially greenhouse effects are very low. Then having few moving parts and such requires the minimal maintenance, though absolutely zero maintenance scenarios are there. The life cycles are quite high, and then modular in design, offering the flexibility for the size and the efficiency of the manufacturing. This can be utilized in combination of the heat and power purpose, further increasing the efficiency in the energy production. And that is how the overall fuel cells have been considered here. Before we go to the summary, I would like to say that these experimentations in India, probably it is way ahead. We may have to wait for another 10 years at least to see that these developments may come up in India, provided the world can show us that yes, it is economical, viable, and also business makes some sense to bring in this type of technologies in future. But as I said rightly, that fuel cell may be a little longer lead time, but hybrid vehicles is the solutions which we can always look at it. Then talking about those limitations about lithium and batteries is another area wherein we may have to go for the alternative of other battery technologies which can come up and which can quickly get charged, so that there will be no delay on the operation sides, and the onboard charging systems which are available probably which can help us on that scenario. Limited sources of fossil fuel will end over by the period, and IC engines will stop. But question is when? I don't have answer. At least in near future, it is cannot. But maybe after 2050, we may have some insights about it that it may end up by that time, provided the other technologies are not economically viable, made available in India also for all such applications. Then EVs is good potential with many hurdles to overcome as we discussed about it. Hybrid variety solutions are available to boost the electrifications and overcome new issues which EV as a range extender. As I told you, the EVs has the basic limitations for intra-city travel. Like if somebody starts from Bombay and wanting to reach to Nagpur in one stretch, probably with gasoline vehicles he can do it, but cannot do with the electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles as on date. Yes, hybrid vehicles will help it, but today again we may have to go for a refueling during the hybrid vehicles usage for such a long drive of 800,000 kilometers in one go. Then fuel cell is a future. Yes, we have lots of hopes about it, and stronger experimentation drives are required, which OEMs are doing it, companies are doing it, and university level programs is only talking about the fuel cell programs, which is that too in the developed countries like USA and Europe. The hydrogen storage, we have seen the challenges, and we need a huge boost to go for the hydrogen as a longer term fuel cells. But I'm happy to say that key organizations like ARI or IIT, some of the IITs, they are trying to work on hydrogen fuel cells, or they are working on those fuel cell developments also. Some programs has been taken up at the university level or the institutions like ARI level. Then an optimum electric drive strategy and the downsizing of engine is one of the key feature of the hybrid vehicles, and which is anyway going to come up in the market. Use of advanced simulations algorithms is one of the prominent area wherein lots of engineers required to enhance their skills, they enhance their software knowledge, and they have to work as like today the combustion development process is being considered for the emission level control for the industry requirements. That too, industry can, university level can do the basic level, but the at cost which is producible, which is affordable for a customer and OEM is more important for the industry per se. So that is how I looked at it. Both combinations are more suitable. So professors at various colleges level, they can work upon it, and the same time industry can work upon for the development at economical rate by which industry and customer can be happy with that type of understanding on the powertrain development. Develop electrification strategy has resulted into ISG based parallel hybrid vehicle architecture, and this type of vehicles are going to come up in a big numbers, large numbers, and we need to be prepared for the technology adaptation as well as preparing the second generation, which is aware about those hybrid vehicles technology as a part of architecture, their scope, their activities by which they can work in the industry with those programs. And that is the overview from my side. I think I try to touch upon the three different subjects and try to give you overall analogy about it. And I hope it is well received by all of you. Thank you for patience listening, and I'm open for the question answers. Over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for sharing the knowledge with us. This is a unique knowledge. And see, the electrical vehicle is a very emerging area. I'm struggling from the last week to get the people from the industry. I just want to share that it is very difficult to get the people from the industry because I think they have some their restrictions to deliver the sessions. So thank you very much for giving us your valuable time and sharing the knowledge with us. I open the forum for all the professors and the research scholar. Those are present here. Please ask any query if related with this emerging area like electric vehicle. Professors.
Hello, sir.
Hel-
Hello, this is Ubed Shah from AIKTC. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Actually, I want to ask a question about retrofitting of the electric of the vehicles into the electric vehicles, or you can say that conversion of a conventional vehicle into the electric vehicles. As you said that area has provided three norms to retrofitting, right? So the costing of the retrofitting is more than the original product, or you can say the original or a new OEM electric vehicle. So will it be affordable on the large scale?
Is that question over, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. The simple answer to this question is yes, it is definitely not affordable to the persons those who are looking for the retrofitment part of it. Unless and until you have developed the sources for those parts to be made available at economical rate. Like when OEMs start manufacturing, they go for at least for a batch of about 100 to something like 1000 on a per day basis. If a person who is not keen for, not able to get such type of huge orders, probably one has to look at the what is that economical ordering which can happen, maybe a batch of 10 or maybe batch of 50, what he can procure at the rate by which he can definitely make it affordable. Then the pricing may come down. Probably a one batch within a month or 2 months you will be able to produce it, and then only the rates of those components can be sizably low for offering at the low price part of it. One is that part technology. Unless and until you are self manufacturer and you are trying to supply it to the outside world, like I'm just taking a small example, like you are producing a small motor of 1.8 kilowatt and you are trying to put it on a two-wheeler. Probably yes, it is very economical for you to supply as well as outside and also start doing the retrofitment job. And there are certain people those who are interested to do such kind of activities, they are doing it. But when you offer it to the public and the old vehicle particular conversion, what to deal with the old engine or what to deal with the power plant which was available, so it is obviously a scrap part of it. Either you cannot give him the price of the power plant or the transmission which are going to take it out, and then question, $1 million question comes out, what are you going to do with this kind of a power plants? And that is how retrofitment is being considered as an experimentation level basis, for which the people those who are very keen, there are certain people those who are having technocrat minds, and those mechanics or engineers those kept on working, probably they can offer it for 8, 10, 20 people, and this type of vehicles can easily made available for those people at the best offerable rate which he can offer for. But if you start looking at a manufacturing per se at a higher level of the conversion cost and those number of vehicles, unless and until you are able to achieve that kind of order quantity, probably it is a challenge which one has to deal with. So straightforward answer is no. But long term, if you are really looking forward for a keenness to develop this type of trends and there is a good demand from the market side, yes, it is possible. But there's another rule which is coming up now, like the 15 years life of the vehicle. Probably after 5 6 years your vehicle is not maintained properly, or for some reason you have to remove, your fuel efficiency is not good and you want to change to electric vehicles, then this type of scenario of basic things which carry forward from the main vehicle OEM manufacturer who has provided you the vehicle, and retrofitment is another area wherein your efficiency down cases can be supported with the change of the electricity or change of the components which you can help it out. But this is typically not considered as a good solution in long run part of it. That is my experience says. But as a policy and strategy, we have to prepare for everything. That is the reason as a authority we have to keep everything considered for, and that is how taking interest of those small manufacturers or the garage bands or the people those who are having some technical creativity they wanted to work upon. the freedom has been given for that matter.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
This is Professor D.B. Jadhav. Actually, sir, if we develop some things like a hub motor and if we develop some batteries, does we require to have the certification from the ARAI to do such kind of retrofitting?
Yes, there will be definitely at two levels it will be required. The component level which you try to produce, or you if you got some suppliers who is producing and supplying it to you, either supplier has to get the certification done. But typically, I'm telling you, battery we have seen with the different cases of rainwater which is flooded to the floor level, or maybe a circuitry by which you can looking at it in which the high voltage current is being traveled from battery end to the motor end, whether it is safe or not, the battery is safe or not, what is that thermal explosion which is likely to happen, what is that current rating which is at which it is charging and discharging. All those things are really required to be make it safe. And that is how there is a standards which are saying that if the current is constantly giving at the peak load, 30 minutes performance of the motor is required to be tested. Same time when the battery is discharged at the peak load and at peak supply rate, what if it is charges, what is that thermal explosion which can happen war. So all such requirements has to be get with, as I told you, the crash worthiness requirements, like if simple thing like nail goes inside the sail and it bursts off, what it will happen, the passengers inside the car is likely to get explode. And in all these circumstances, the safety of the person is more important over here. That is how the standards has come up. It is not meant for a one purpose to make it for one example out of it, but if you are making experimentation ground, yes, you can do that without even proper approval systems. But what sort of risk which you are trying to deal with, you must be knowing about it. That is more important. But when it comes for the common person's interest or common public's interest, then it has to be a safe. Without that, I would say proper authentication, proper testing, proper methodology evolved for manufacturing. Without that, one should not go for such programs, because you are dealing with unknown parameters and probably it may turn out to be a very nuisance creator for you. So be aware about this kind of thing. That is how I try to involve these subjects in the entire discussion. I hope I answer your requirements. If anything specifically required, probably you can contact me separately.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. This is Swapnil
Hello, sir.
Shinde. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Does it
Hello.
satisfies your answer?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. I have satisfied. Yes.
Sir, I have a question related to the battery
Next
technology.
question.
Hello.
Yes, you can ask. Hello.
Yeah. Right now, many of the companies are investing in solid state batteries.
Any more
So do you
questions?
think this will be the future of electric vehicles?
Sir, Sanjay sir, are you able to hear? Hello. I think his connection lost.
Yeah.
Hello. Sir, connection. Hello. I'm audible for you, Sanjay sir. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. There is one query from Professor Swapnil Shinde, I think.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can ask.
Yes, sir. Hello. Can you hear, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So right now, many of the companies are investing in solid state batteries, which has a solid electrolyte into it. Do you think this will be the trend going forward? Or will
Sir,
it replace the present batteries that are there, lithium?
Solid state batteries are definitely useful for the small charging capacity. However, the high voltage systems and the which are the requirements on the vehicle, which is yet not proven out on that side. So maybe we may have to wait for all looking at how much is successful part of implementation which goes off. But lithium ion today, whatever the capacity wise, if you look at the world trend also, it is the same lithium ion being used in the Tesla, same lithium ion being used in the Mercedes vehicles, and everybody looked at it only because of the lithium ion as a solution to it. However, new type of batteries which are yet to come up, probably sodium ion nickel batteries which are likely to come up, then some experimentations is yet not happened, and that is area where probably we can find out some good alternatives. But solid state batteries is also one of the solution for a small range capacities. But yes, the options has to be worked out. We need to look at it how successfully we can deploy that, and the products which can be run for the range kind of a part which is very keenly seen by the customer. So something like 300 plus kilometers range to 500 kilometers like Kone vehicle from Hyundai is talked about. So all such matters we have to see that how efficiently it can work, and that's how the success of different technologies of battery, which may be seen in very keenly by the all observers. So let's wait and watch about it. I would say, truly speaking, that type of solid state batteries having displayed on the automotive vehicles is very low examples are made available. But two-wheeler, three-wheeler, yes, some of the features have been seen, and maybe in future, small application part of it can come up.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing the knowledge with us. Hope all of the professors have enjoyed the lecture of Mr. Sanjay Nibande, sir, and his knowledge. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for patience
Thank
listening
you,
to
sir.
me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great lecture, sir. Great lecture.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I request to all professors to submit the attendance form, please. And tomorrow morning, also we are with the same ARI speaker, very distinguished Dr. Ora sir, in the morning at 10 a.m.
Sir,
So,
attendance book, sir.
in the chat box, I have given the attendance link.
Okay,
Please
okay.
submit the attendance.
No problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. You can share my mail ID if somebody has any specific questions.
Yes,
It
sir.
is
Yes.
always open for that, and we at ARI level definitely support for all your people in all good spirit to see that the knowledge transfer happens very smoothly. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to all of you.
Yes, sir. Actually, thank you from all of us, from VJTI, from mechanical department, from all the professors that you have shared with your valuable experience and the knowledge with us. Because this is the emerging field, and the industry people are very much strict about their rules and regulation to share the knowledge. We can understand these things also, but until and unless the knowledge will not be shared, how the evaluation will be occur? You
Yes,
can,
sir.
yeah,
Yes, yes.
yes, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sir. Bye, sir. Bye.
Submit केलं sir आपण?
So all the professors, please join tomorrow in the morning. All the professors and the participants, I thought all are from mechanical engineering. Actually,
Yes, sir.
yes. Actually, we got a huge response from all the branches, but what I think the program should be the mechanical based. I have kept it because there are about 120 participants from the mechanical, and other people are from electrical electronics. But we think that we should go with the mechanical related guys because the field is very vast. So please join morning at 10 a.m. and take the advantage of the speakers.
Okay, definitely, sir. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir, for arranging such a nice session for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So you can log out, sir.